All right, so we're going to continue on with the 30 minutes for the Liquid Nails subfloors where we were at. We'll stick the 30 minutes in there. Reset it. Go down. Take some of that slack out. It's a little lower, 434, 35, something like that. Run it back up. Similar to the 15 minutes, other than it failed a little sooner. Now we're going to do the wet. Other than they don't have a nail on the right place. Again, 435 for the 0 minute. Now we're going to do the wet 0 minute. Reset it. Go back to 1 inch a minute. And we'll take a little bit of the slack out. And we'll see if water is going to affect our liquid nail subfloor. And a little better, a little worse than the 15 minute, but actually a little better than the 30 minute. Okay. Kind of an interesting result. Similar failure, plywood, keep on. All right, now we're going to move on to our polyurethane based. We're going to start with our PL8X Premium Fastgrab. Again, it's a polyurethane formula on here. If you read through here, it tells you it's a polyurethane, said polyurethane based right there. And so we're going to do that next. Again, we'll start with 0 minute dry. So 0 minute dry. Try to get centered. We're going to reset at 556 is what we got for the 0 minute wet for the liquid nail subfloor. We'll see what we get for our polyurethane base. PL8X Fastgrab. Loctite. Okay, pretty good number, 800 and some pounds. Run it back up. So you can see this is using the other plywood. This is only has 5 layers on it. And when I cut the plywood, the grain was running this direction. So it kind of peeled those layers off. Okay. Not sure how much that affects the test. But if we wanted to do it, we should have run some of the plywood with the grain the other direction to kind of see if that was a problem. Still held pretty good. Flip this over. And we're going to do, just check, make sure I got the right one, 15 minute dry. Okay. Doesn't look like it's on there very straight. Let's see how much it's going to hold. Okay, 818 for the last one. Going to reset it. And then down. Again, PL8X. Loctite Fastgrab. All right, here we got about 418. You can kind of just hear it pulling the nails out. And we can see here that kind of what it looks like. And so forth. All right. Now we're going to go to the 30-minute dry. It's skimmed over. Again, 418 for the last one. Go ahead and reset it. Take some of that slack out. Okay. 718. Got a little better than we did for the 15-minute, but I think it had to do with the prep and the fact that we used a little bit better plywood. Okay, this plywood was that basically that cabinet grade plywood. Got a few less voids in the sides of it. Tends to perform a little bit better in the test so far that we've seen. Let's go to 0-minute wet. Again, 718 for the last one. Go ahead and reset it, and then go down. All right. In this case, you can definitely see all of the glue is still on the plywood. None of the glue stuck or didn't pull any of the wood off. So definitely doesn't like to be wet, although 310 is what we got. So this particular polyurethane doesn't like to be wet, doesn't like to stick to wet 2x4s. Okay, the next one we're going to do is going to be our Liquid Nails Polyurethane. That's the second one that we're comparing. Liquid Nails Polyurethane. It actually says polyurethane on the grade for it. We'll start out with our 0-minute dry. So I got 0-minute dry on there. They didn't give me a whole lot to hook on the one end. Again, what's important is that we center that plywood so we pull it off as straight as possible. 310 for the last one, reset it, and go down. Okay. Typically, I would have you students would be the ones coming up running the machine. Okay, somebody from the group that did these. I think that's our highest number so far, 1125. Pretty good number. Again, Liquid Nails Polyurethane. I carefully tap this off and see that we did get the failure with the plywood veneer on there. Okay. Flip it over. Centered. Again, 1125. That's been our high so far. All right, head down. Take a little bit of the slack out. Make sure I reset that. This is our 30-minute dry because I did them out of order, didn't I? All right, so 30-minute dry, we got 1,047. So also really good number. And it looks like the plywood in this case, not only did the plywood veneer pull off, it actually started to split the plywood on the end and actually literally pull that plywood apart. Okay. Again, that was 30-minute dry, so I did do that one out of order because of the way they glued these up. So now we're going to do 15-minute dry. So this will be the 15-minute dry. All right, 1047 for the 30-minute. Let's see how the 15-minute does. Okay, 1017, so not bad. Again, this particular polyurethane, Liquid Nails Polyurethane, the time frame doesn't seem to affect the glue very much. Again, this one actually pulled the plywood apart. It didn't try to separate the plywood layers. Well, actually it did. Started to separate the layers right there. I don't know if you can see that very well on the camera right there. Started to separate the layers. So literally the glue held so well that we're actually testing the plywood, not the glue itself. Okay. And I guess that's what we would expect from a good construction adhesive. All right, so I'm going to reset that. Now we're going to do 0-minute wet. Let's show you that. I got it labeled 0-minute wet. All right. Again, Liquid Nails Polyurethane. Now the polyurethanes tend to be a little more expensive than the petroleum-based, $5 to $8 range, just depending on where you get it at, which particular one it is. So if you notice this one, 1110. This one actually performed better wet than it did dry. Okay, which just depends on the brand, or this particular brand has so far been our best in all 4 cases. You can see they did get a pretty good bead on there. They got a full coating bead all the way around there. And if we look at the plywood, literally pulled the plywood pieces off here and literally started to split it pretty much all the way, about halfway or 3/4 of the way down it. Okay, so pretty good glue. That particular one's pretty glued. A little bit more expensive than some. Okay. All right, next we're going to go to our wire-based ones. So we're going to use our Liquid Nails. We're going to do Liquid Nails. This one's called Ultra Quick Grip. Okay, so we'll do the 0-minute on it first. I can find a 0-minute wet. They did theirs opposite of normal. So let me find the right ones. Try to do them in the right order this time. So we're going to do 0-minute dry here. Again, this is water-based. So this is usually water-based cleanup when it's wet. Still have to typically use mineral spirits once it dries. Okay. All right, so 0-minute dry Liquid Nails Ultra Quick Grip. All right, about 633. Now we can just hear it kind of pulling the nails out. And here we can kind of see that the glue did start to separate there some, but eventually the plywood pulled apart. Again, that plywood had the grain running that direction on that outer sheathing. And again, I don't know if running it the other direction would make some difference or not. Someday we'll test that. All right, so we'll do 15 minutes. I don't know if I showed you the number, 633 for that 0-minute dry. Now we're going to do our 15-minute dry. Again, ultra quick grip, Liquid Nails, ultra quick grip, water based. So we got 331. Okay. So in this particular case, it didn't like skimming over very well. Let's see if that's the case with the 30-minute. Stick our 30-minute in here. $331 for the last one. Let's see. This one's a little lower. Again, you can kind of hear there's nails pulling out. Sometimes I'll shoot one with just the 2 nails, and sometimes I'll show the students where the nails themselves take about 60 to 100 pounds to just pull the 2 little brads out. Okay. In this case, 243, so even lower than the 15-minute. Again, this particular water-based one does not like to dry out. You can see where it literally skimmed over right there, got all skimmed over on there, not very sticky, and you can see that on the plywood, nothing stuck to the plywood. Okay. All right, the last case is we got wet. So how does the water-based react to wet? We're going to find out. Again, 243 for that last one, 30-minute dry, ultra quick grip. Get it somewhat centered here. Flip that over. Again, we're going to zero it, and we're going to go down. Again, remember we had about 233 or whatever it was for the 30-minute dry. And notice the wet actually did pretty well. Okay, about similar to our 0-minute dry, in that the wet allows it to flow pretty well into the pores. Okay. In this case, we can see that it literally did get into the pores of that veneer on there, and literally pulled that veneer off. Okay. All right, we'll do our second water-based one. This second water-based one is going to be Loctite Power Grab. So Loctite Power Grab, heavy duty, because that always makes it better. We can put heavy duty on there. All right, we're going to start out with our 0-minute dry. Stick it in there. Get it all centered up here. Switch over, again, 632 is what we got for the wet for the last one. We'll zero it, and we'll start it down. Again, 1 inch a minute is where we're doing all these tests. All right. We got 364. Go back up. And we can see that they didn't get a very big bead on there. That much of it stuck to the 2x4, that much of it stuck to the piece of plywood. Again, a marginal bead on there compared to some of the others. So we're really comparing this to itself, assuming they did the bead evenly on all of them. So again, it was a little low, mainly because they didn't get much bead on there. All right, we're going to go 15 minutes. All right, 364. So let's see what happens. Okay, I think we're already done. 234. So even lower. Let's check out what kind of bead they got on there. Okay, so the bead width was pretty consistent from the 0 dry to the 15-minute dry. So like we can assume that being tacky like that, we can see that it just kind of peels off like that. So once it kind of skims over or dries out like that, doesn't stick very well, at least for this particular water-based glue. Okay. Now we'll do the 30-minute. Hopefully that'll confirm that it doesn't like to dry out. Okay, so 234, 0 that, and we're going to go down. Again, this is the 30-minute dry. I think you can actually see that on there. And it already popped loose at 148. Okay, this glue definitely does not like to dry out, especially if you don't use very much of it. Okay. Again, that's pretty consistent bead with the others. Half of the beads on there, other half beads on here, and it does peel off fairly easy. Okay, so again, it does not like to dry out. Well, let's see what happens when it's wet. Okay, we would assume a water-based one would improve because it wet would keep it from drying out and allow it to flow in the pores better. But all right, 148. Go ahead and flip that over there, 0 that, hit down. All right. So 454. So I think that was our highest number for this one. Not sure. I have to go back and look at the video, but I believe so. So this particular water-based one actually did better when it was wet. And we can see that it did, again, not a very big bead, but about consistent with the other ones. It did spread a little further because it was wet on the 2x4, tended to spread a little more. Did tear some of the plywood out here and on here. Okay. All right, so that's all of our regular base glues. Now we're going to do the last one is our Gorilla Glue. Okay. So Gorilla Glue, we're using Gorilla Glue. We're using the one that's called Heavy Duty Construction Adhesive. Again, not a lot of information on here. You kind of try to read through it. I haven't read all the information on this one, but on the ones we've used in the past, it didn't really tell you what the formula was. It does tell you what it's not recommended for and what it is recommended for. But on their website, it just said proprietary poly formula. Okay, so we're going to start out with our 0-minute dry. Sure that's the one I got. Yep, so Gorilla Glue, 0-minute dry. Okay. All right, flip this over here. 454 is what we got for the last one, in case I forgot to show it. We'll go down. This is the second time I recorded this video. The first time the audio was double and you couldn't understand anything. So hopefully this one's coming out better. So for the 0-minute, that's 604. That's not too bad. Sounds like some of the plywood's breaking. We'll run it back up. We see on here, kind of just trying to peel this back, see how much bead they got on there. So again, not a complete wide bead on there. So 600 is probably not too bad for the amount of bead or surface area they got on there. Okay, we're going to go to the 15-minute dry. Oh, I'll show you the number, 604 for the 0-minute. Now we'll go to the 15-minute. Set that, go down, take some of that slack out of there. All right. All right, even better on the 15-minute. Let's see what changed. We can see on here that at least for this distance, they got a lot wider bead on there. They put a much heavier bead on there, at least to this point, then it kind of thins out a little bit right there. You can see that in the camera. All right, so a little bit more glue on there, and it didn't tend to skim over too bad. So let's see what happens on our 30-minute. 30-minute wet, 0-minute wet. So, okay. Should have been 30-minute dry. I know only half the tube before was wet, so we're going to assume they meant dry. Remember, our samples are only as good as you prep them. All right. Here we go. This is our 30-minute dry. Okay, so a little lower, 494. We're going to check out, see how much bead they had on there. All right, actually had fairly good bead almost most of the way. Maybe a little small right at the very end, but we can definitely see how thick it is, how it skimmed over and it didn't spread out when they tried to push the 2x4 on there. Okay, so definitely made it a little less than it should have been. So the 30 minutes was not very kind to the Gorilla Glue. Let's see what happens with the water. Again, 494 Gorilla Glue, 30 minutes. All right, 494 for the wet. We can see that not too bad on there, and it was actually a pretty, try to peel these fibers back, you can see that it was a pretty thin layer on there in spots, but it's all rubbery, okay? The water kind of makes it kind of rubbery like that. I don't know if you can see that very well. So I pull that apart. It's kind of rubbery and kind of peels off pretty easy like that. The water definitely affected it, okay? All right, that's all our samples. So use that data, fill out the lab for Lab7 there. Fill it out, decide which one is the best. I'll probably put some more notes on costs and so forth for each one in the description of the video. Okay, so that's all for now.